Welcome to today's Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here, because today we're untangling a pretty fascinating area of civil law. We're looking at the actual legal tools used to establish your rights and prevent wrongs. Whether you're dealing with a messy property dispute, a question about your legal status, or just trying to stop an unfair action dead in its tracks, understanding the boundaries of civil relief is literally a game changer. Today, we're decoding the primary source material on Section 42 and Section 56. These two sections basically serve as the ultimate do's and don'ts of civil litigation. And we aren't just doing a dry legal breakdown here, we're building a concrete toolkit of action steps. We're going to break down exactly how you proactively protect your legal character, and conversely, what kind of strict behaviors and situations will cause a judge to slam the door on your request for an injunction. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We've got 4 main sections: establishing your legal rights, the Consequential Relief Rule, when injunctions are refused, and finally a really interesting one called the Clean Hands Doctrine. So, kicking things off with Section 1, establishing your legal rights under Section 42.
This brings us to our proactive do's. Under Section 42, a declaratory suit allows you to approach the court to formally, legally establish your title, your ownership, or your legal character. Think of a real-world example here. Let's say you're the rightful heir to a family business, right? But your siblings are actively locking you out and denying your status. Well, this suit is your primary action step to legally cement your standing. It's basically a preemptive strike to get the court to officially declare, yes, this belongs to this person, or yes, they hold this specific legal status. But, and this is a massive takeaway, you gotta remember that the court is not legally bound to grant you this declaration. Note, it's a completely discretionary relief. The judge is gonna look purely at the merits of your specific case to decide if you actually deserve that official declaration.
So, if you want to file a successful suit under Section 42, there are 2 critical action steps you absolutely must take. Step 1. You have to prove you're actually entitled to a specific legal character. Like, say, your status as a legal heir, a business partner, or a spouse. Or you have to prove a legitimate right to a property. You've got to establish that foundation. Then, Step 2. You have to prove that the defendant is actively denying, or at least has an interest in denying, that title or character. You can't just stroll into court and ask for a declaration out of the blue if no one's actually challenging you. There has to be a real, tangible dispute going on.
Moving right along to Section 2, the Consequential Relief Rule, also known as the Proviso Pitfall.
Now that we know the basic steps, consider yourself warned. A lot of well-intentioned plaintiffs completely tank their cases on a technicality called the proviso. The rule here is absolute. A court will not grant a mere declaration if the plaintiff is able to seek further consequential relief but completely omits to do so. Your action step here is critical. Literally never omit the follow-up request. If you have the ability to ask the court to actually fix the underlying problem, like asking for an injunction or damages or possession, but you leave that out and only ask for the declaration, the court is going to deny your suit. Plain and simple. The law hates half measures. If you can ask for the full remedy, you absolutely must ask for the whole shebang.
Let's ground this in a real-world property dispute. Imagine you are currently out of possession of a property, meaning someone else is physically occupying your land or your building. You can't just go to the judge and ask only for a declaration of ownership. Why? Because if the court simply says, yep, you're the owner, it hasn't actually solved the core problem. You still aren't living in your house. So to satisfy the proviso, you must ask for the declaration of ownership plus consequential relief, which in this specific case means asking the court to officially grant you physical possession. That's your key action step. Always bundle your request for legal status with the practical remedy required to actually enforce it.
All right, that brings us to Section 3, when injunctions are refused, looking at the Section 56 boundaries. We're shifting gears now from the proactive do's to the strict statutory don'ts. An injunction at its core is just a court order meant to prevent a wrongdoing. It's a super powerful tool to stop someone dead in their tracks. But because it's so powerful, Section 56 outlines some really strict statutory boundaries. And honestly, these boundaries are absolutely crucial to prevent the abuse of the legal process itself. The system has to protect itself from people using injunctions to just create chaos, harass their neighbors, or bypass normal legal procedures.
So what exactly are these boundaries? Well, here are the specific scenarios where the court's hands are legally tied and an injunction just cannot be granted. First, to stay pending judicial proceedings, unless it's strictly necessary to prevent an endless loop of lawsuits over the exact same issue.
Second, to stay legislative or governmental functions, you can't use an injunction to interfere with public duties. Third, to prevent a breach of contract that couldn't be specifically enforced under the Act to begin with. And finally, when an equally efficacious relief is available. Now, what does efficacious relief mean? It simply means that if you can get the exact same result or remedy through another standard mode of proceeding, the court's going to deny the injunction. For example, if someone breaches a standard vendor contract, your action step is usually just to sue for monetary damages. That right there is your efficacious relief. Because that standard option exists, the court will say no way to a special injunction.
And finally, we arrive at Section 4, the clean hands doctrine and improper conduct.
Now we have to focus entirely on your behavior as the plaintiff. When you ask a court for an injunction, the court is actively judging your conduct. An injunction is flat out denied if the applicant has absolutely no personal interest in the matter. You can't just be a busybody trying to stop things that don't even affect you. But more importantly, it's denied if the applicant's own conduct has been inequitable. Think about it. If you're asking for an injunction to stop a neighbor from building on a property line, but you yourself secretly falsified the land survey, yeah, that's inequitable conduct. You're going to face an immediate denial.
And this brilliantly illustrates a profound, historic legal maxim taken straight from our source text. He who comes to equity must come with clean hands. Civil relief, and especially injunctions, are deeply rooted in the concept of equity, of fairness. If you are asking the court for fairness, you have to demonstrate that you yourself have acted fairly. You can't seek justice if you're engaged in injustice yourself, right? It's a really powerful thematic anchor for everything we've talked about today regarding proper conduct.
I want to pull up the actual source document we've been using to anchor today's explainer. Everything we've covered, the definitions of a declaratory suit under Section 42, the critical danger of that proviso rule, the strict statutory limits of Section 56, and of course, the clean hands doctrine, it's all derived directly from this text. Seeing the source material really reinforces how these aren't just abstract ideas. These are strict legal criteria written right into the statutes to govern exactly how rights are established and wrongs are addressed in the real world.
Which brings us to our final thought. We've covered a ton of ground detailing the mechanics of civil relief today, but the most important action step isn't just knowing the legal definitions, is it? It's evaluating your own position before you ever step foot inside a courtroom. So I'll leave you with this question to ponder. Before seeking civil relief, ask yourself, do I truly have clean hands in this situation? And have I exhausted all other forms of efficacious relief? Understanding the honest answers to those questions is the true key to navigating Sections 42 and 56. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.